Wow, that is a lot of people standing up for their own personal liberties and freedoms, and it's not just happening in Australia. All throughout the country with stunning aerial footage like this, specifically coming out of Melbourne, highlighting what many people have called hundreds of thousands of people who said that they had enough. This, of course, is also happening in places like Milan, Italy, with also a significant crowd of people coming together. And it's not just happening in major Western cities in the world, but also places like Guadalupe and other places in the world, with people, of course, fighting for bodily autonomy. Now, how is this mass awakening happening right now without any significant coverage from the corporate media? Well, I think that question answers itself once you start really realizing what's going on. Welcome back, beautiful and amazing human beings. This is Luke Rudowski here of WeAreChange.org. We got a lot of important information to get into today, as of course today is the start of the Ghislaine Maxwell trial, which of course surrounds the story of the decade, which also very conveniently the corporate press does not like to talk about, or when they do, they usually obfuscate the larger meanings of. That's why we're going to tell you all the important things you need to know about this important court proceeding that, of course, most likely you won't get anywhere else. And before we begin, it's also important to note that today is not only the start of Ghislaine Maxwell's trial, it's also the start of Jussie Smollett's case, a man who, of course, faked a race crime for his Instagram likes and for his career, dividing and conquering a nation with the full institutional support of the establishment, with Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, the corporate media, and all of the latest celebrities pushing what we now know was a race hoax that was literally made up. In related crazy people making up stuff news, we of course have the director of the Canadian Institute of Indigenous Peoples Health be suspended after it came out that she was lying about being, quote, native, joining, of course, a long list of white people. Specifically, her background was Czechoslovakian, Russian, and Polish, pretending to be people of color for social advantages. And this is pretty disgusting behavior on many levels. And many times this is done by mentally ill people preaching a cult of SJW wokeism, which of course also brought us looting and rioting 2 years ago, which we saw a small glimpse return during Black Friday, specifically in Los Angeles, after looters did smash and grabs on many luxury outlet businesses in California. And by and large, while crime gets excused all in the names of social justice, others, though, don't have that same privilege, as we recently saw with the court proceedings of Kyle, which, as a result of, had Best Buy employees literally offer counseling to their workers over the not guilty verdict. This, of course, is leading many people to boycott Best Buy, as other people are calling for Kyle to be kicked out of college, as he was previously accepted to ASU, which some students are trying to prevent him being able to come to that school. Now, there's a lot of crazy stuff happening in this world, and recently, one of the few places where you could still navigate it, where you could still somewhat have a semblance of understanding of it, was, of course, Twitter, which we're finding out likely won't be the case anymore, as, of course, Jack Dorsey just moments ago publicly announced that he is resigning as the CEO of Twitter and soon will be replaced by the company's CTO, Parag Agrawal, who in an MIT Technology Review journal said, quote, "Our role is not to be bound by the First Amendment, focusing less on thinking about free speech, but thinking about how the times have changed." Yes, those were the words of now the current CEO of Twitter, who of course also has connections to Snopes and PolitiFact, very biased organizations that of course serve political interests rather than of course actually do what they purport to do. And with this recent change, it's probably going to affect what we can and cannot say on Twitter anymore. It was one of the few places that still allowed some sort of assortment of speech, even though it censored it in some instances. But still, when you compare it to the level of censorship that happened on Instagram, that happened on Facebook, Twitter really did a better job than all the other big tech platforms, and I think that's going to change. I think it's soon going to become the new Facebook, and because of that, don't forget to follow us on enougofcensorship.com and sign up on our email list before it's too late. And even though Jack wasn't perfect, he had some kind of personal level of commitment to free speech, at least with his words. He previously made statements that if he wasn't working at Square or Twitter, that he would be working on Bitcoin. What will he be doing from here? How will Twitter change? Well, of course, only time will tell, but we are very happy that we have our own platforms like LukeUncensored.com that, of course, still offer a safe haven, a platform, an ability for all of us to communicate in an uncensored, unfiltered, totally free way. We got a lot of important stuff to get into. We're going to be doing a special video on that platform later on today, specifically with all the latest information surrounding Omicron, the new travel bans, the new restrictions, the new lockdowns, and, of course, the resistance against a lot of this nonsense, which of course starts with having the right and proper accurate information, which a lot of powerful people are trying to make sure you don't. LukeUncensored.com, click on the link below, sign up right now to find out more while you still can. Now, I think it's fair to say with this upcoming court proceeding of Ghislaine Maxwell, which just started today, that there's a lot hanging in the balance of it, as of course even Rolling Stone had an article that says, quote, everybody absolutely horrified, high society is bracing itself for Ghislaine Maxwell's trial, as of course there is still a lot that the general public doesn't know about this larger international trafficking and extortion operation, which included small children and went on for over 3 decades. What we know is this small. What's out there is a lot bigger than we could even perceive. Let's just be honest with ourselves here. I think it's also fair to say that there's a lot of media cover-up that has happened throughout the entirety of the over 3+ decades during the operation that was conducted on some of the most richest and powerful people on this world. And I think it's only fair to expect some more distractions ahead with, of course, also blatant media obfuscation, which I would directly pinpoint the New York Times on doing, which I'm going to be getting into in just a little bit. But it's not only the corporate media that we have to worry about here when it comes to finding out the larger truths and depravity of our ruling elites, if you could even call them that, but it's also the judge and federal prosecutor, which I specifically want to talk about in this video. As recently, the judge in this case has ruled that some of the details are, quote, too sensational and impure for the general public, that, of course, she ruled will be denied to the American people, as, of course, she decided that there will be redactions of significant portions of this trial that, of course, the people will not be allowed to know. Now, we're living in a world of Cardi B, of Jersey Shore, of just outright debauchery being promoted by big tech social media, by Hollywood, but by, of course, the entertainment industry, filled with, of course, sickos like Weinstein, Kevin Spacey, but yet details about a court proceeding are too sensational and impure for the public. The public is not supposed to, one, have an effect on this court proceeding, so just this ruling on itself, to me, is absolutely asinine and signals more bigger problems ahead for us finding out the true details of exactly what was going on here. As we're also finding out that this judge is also set to be promoted and recommended to a higher court. Is this a coincidence here? Some would say so, but of course, when it comes to this entire saga, I would ask more questions rather than blindly believe the insanity proposed to us. As of course, it's also important to note here that the same state prosecutor that lost the Epstein tapes, that lost the tapes of what happened to this man in his jail cell, is now the lead prosecutor in Ghislaine's trial. Yes, if you remember, the videotape of what happened to Epstein in his cell was erased by a, quote, technical error. It was allegedly found and then deleted again, according to some sources. William Barr, whose father was connected to Epstein, said that he saw the video that, of course, no one saw, that now doesn't exist, that now is lost, that now is deleted, which, of course, stinks to high heaven. How do you lose? How do you, quote, erase video footage of the events in question that could exonerate the entire legal system, that could exonerate all the crazy theories out there, that could stop all the nonsense, that could prove the government isn't lying here? How could you just delete that footage as a state prosecutor? And now that same person, Maureen Comey, is the lead prosecutor in the Ghislaine Maxwell trial. She, of course, is also the daughter of James Comey, the former FBI head that, even according to CNBC, violated DOJ policies and was overtly political during his tenure as the head of the FBI. This is a major story. This is a big deal here because obviously James Comey's daughter here committed an act that highlights how corrupt or how incompetent government could be, and now she has been somehow promoted to one of the most important court proceedings that is happening in the United States. Again, for her to say that this video that again highlights everything that happened to Epstein, quote, no longer exists, is an absolute dereliction of duty and injustice that she should have been fired for immediately. She wasn't. She was promoted. Now she's the one going after Ghislaine Maxwell. And this is something that, of course, concerned me from the very beginning, even seeing her arguments against Ghislaine, saying that it was women that were trafficked here, and, of course, ignoring the obvious fact that many of these, quote, women were underage children. That's the important case here. That's the aspect here that the state prosecutor has been missing. Is this federal prosecutor missing this on purpose? It's also important to note that Ghislaine Maxwell's accomplices are also not in dock with her. They haven't been, of course, identified. There's rumors that they're being protected by the U.S. government, and many people are asking the very important questions. Other women who acted as groomers and recruiters of small children for the sick, twisted benefit of the ruling elites that were hanging around Mr. Epstein and Ghislaine, why aren't they on trial when, of course, they are also alleged to have committed horrible atrocities against children? Again, a lot of corporate media publications are saying women here. It's children involved here that we should never forget. Prince Andrew also missing from the larger accusations, missing from this trial. Why are the accusations against Prince Andrew's excluded here when, of course, there's photos of Ghislaine Maxwell, Prince Andrew, and one of the victims here that was prominently photographed with them? And again, a lot of this nonsense could be why a lot of victims here are feeling dread, as even according to this Daily News article that interviewed Maria Farmer, who, of course, is skeptical here, and you should be, as, of course, thousands of children were involved here, as, of course, the FBI under James Comey ignored victims of these predators, as, of course, the FBI literally was interviewing people since 1996. They were sitting down, talking to victims, coming forward, telling them that there's this large trafficking operation of children happening with many powerful people involved. And of course, the FBI ignored it. And now the former head of the FBI, his daughter that already deleted the footage and destroyed the footage of whatever happened to Epstein, is now in charge of the prosecution against Maxwell. Absolutely highlights some very serious concerns to the larger question of if justice will be served here. And of course, time will tell. I don't want to jump to conclusions, but everything that we're seeing right now is a whole lot of circumstantial evidence that points to this to being a larger cover-up operation that, of course, will deny the general public from actually knowing and finding out the true sinister nature of some of the most powerful people in our society that are still walking freely and never held responsible for their horrible, atrocious actions, which it looks like they will be getting away with. Again, New York Times also just recently, a couple of days ago, ran a piece talking about how what happened to Epstein was definitely, as the official story says it is, as they talk about jail records and documents in jail records that, of course, could be easily forged. They had a video of exactly what happened, directly recording Epstein's cell. James Comey's daughter, the prosecutor against Ghislaine Maxwell, destroyed it. And now the New York Times is telling me, hey, there's some documents here that say that the official story is definitely true. Yeah, okay, sure. Again, there's so many anomalies that happen here. I could just do 2 hours of talking about the things that contradict the official story, the mishaps, the accidents, the coincidences that happen here. There's far too many to assure any reasonable doubt that, of course, what the government is saying is absolutely filled with crap. Again, the trial started today. I have some reporters that I'm talking to that are inside the trial now. We're going to be paying very close attention to this story, as of course this story has a lot of powerful people culpable, responsible, and sitting at their edge of their seats. I hope we get to see the larger picture of exactly what's happening here. I hope the thousands of children get justice here. But if there's one thing that I do know, is that having hope with any kind of government institution is an absolutely ridiculous concept that has no reality basis in it. But hey, that's just my perspective. I'm definitely not going to be taking medical advice from these people's friends, and I'm going to be talking about that later on LukeUncensored.com. What else am I missing here? Let me know down in the comment section below. To me, this is something that people should know about. There's obviously clear signs of corruption here that need to be exposed, and the only way to really expose it is to get the larger messaging out there to the general public. The only way that will happen is, of course, for you guys watching and sharing this video. And if it wasn't for you guys doing that, I wouldn't be here. This is why I love you guys. Stay tuned for more later on LukeUncensored.com. Love you.